Hello and welcome to the 85th episode of the Hoop Theory Podcast, recording this one on the evening of Monday, May 20th. My name is Logan Wertman, and as usual, I am joined by my charismatic co-host, Jacob Roth. Jacob, how's it going? And did you notice that I haven't said who this episode is named after yet?
I did notice that, because usually that's like my first thing that I feel like I'm obligated to react to, or at least process my reaction to, because the adjective is kind of just like a gut feeling at this point. Like, first thing that comes to my mind. But the name is the first thing that I really got to process what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And
85.
This one, the reason why I decided to, prolong its announcement is because this is the first time in a long time we've actually been able to use a jersey number.
Ooh!
Yeah. So the only player to ever wear the jersey 85, and it's not like a nobody player, definitely a player worthy of having his own episode. That's why I decided to jump on it, because I will say the two other candidates for this episode to be named after were two players from the 85 draft, one being the first overall pick, and that was Patrick Ewing, and the other being the best player from that draft, and that was Karl Malone. But
both of which are are episode worthy names.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
But
I think we could get them on later on, probably.
They definitely have accolades that will get them jerseys.
Yeah. And we'll get Patrick Ewing at least. I don't know if we'll do Karl Malone at all, honestly, because he's kind of a dirtbag human being. But
I don't think that can be our barometer, because there's like a lot of dirtbag human beings.
At least that we know of so far, we haven't chosen any dirtbag human beings that have done. I think
that some people would consider Michael Jordan a dirtbag human being.
Not even close to as bad
Not
as
to
what
the
Karl
same
Malone
level
has
as
done.
bad, but I feel like, I don't know, you're correct.
There's one thing that puts you in a special place in hell in a lot of people's minds, and then one that's just like, oh, that guy likes to gamble, he's kind of a dick.
And he got his dad killed. But yeah.
That is not a proven thing, but
that's true. The disgusting things that Karl Malone done are definitely proven. I don't know. I wasn't even dying on that hill, because it's definitely very valid. Karl Malone probably won't get an episode.
Apparently, the only reason he got away from those charges or whatever was because the statute of limitations. So, like, it was not proven until long enough after in the state of Louisiana that at that time apparently that grape. I'm trying to censor the word. Apparently there's a statute of limitations on that that's not super long in the state of Louisiana at that time, back in the 80s or whenever. Yeah, it would have been in the 80s because he would have been in college. He was like 22. And he got a 13-year-old pregnant. And that child is a NFL player. Don't remember his name, but he is a player in the NFL. At least he was at one point. But yeah, so that took a wild turn. The person who is actually the name of this episode, he wore the jersey number 85, the only person ever to wear it. He wore it on two different teams, one season each. He wore it in 2011 on the Cavs, and he wore it in 2012 on the Knicks. And this is actually the only guy I thought of for the jersey number. He somebody that I remember wearing it because he was on a team that I cheered for quite a bit, which was the 2012 Knicks. He was a point guard. I don't know if you'll get it, but
I'm like thinking, I have no idea who okay, so Knicks, Cavs, journeyman type of guy?
No, not really. He's more of he was a star for a good portion of his career.
What is his team that is most like?
I guess as a star, he bounced around quite a bit as a star too. But I would say Golden State were his best years. He played a little bit on the Clippers in some good years.
Clippers, Warriors, Knicks, Cavs.
I think the Hornets would be the other.
Or the glory days before he wore 85, like were his prime years.
His only 2 years he wore 85 was on the Cavs one year and the Knicks one year when he was old.
But his Warriors years were before 2011.
Yes, for sure. He had the big old beard.
Oh, okay. So there's only one guy that my brain thinks it can be.
Yeah.
It's going to be what do they call him? What's that area of Warriors called? It's not Great Grind Warriors.
Era, you mean?
Yeah, that weird. They had the wild playoff The death of the war, like the jersey where the guy's like holding a lightning. It's Baron Davis. What is that era of like Warriors that playoff run?
It probably does have a name. Oh, the We Believe Warriors.
The We Believe Warriors.
That was technically only one season, but I guess that era probably gets that name in some ways. You know, it was the 2007 playoffs, I believe, was the We Believe Warriors that were the 8th seed that won in the first round.
That group of guys like
Baron Davis, Steven Jackson, Al Harrington, I believe, would have been on that team maybe around that time at least. Matt Barnes, maybe.
Yeah,
probably not.
No, I think he is.
But anyways, Baron Davis though, he's like the beard before the beard. He's the beard before James Harden.
Also, me saying that there's only one guy I can think of as not trying to be disrespectful to Steven Jackson at all. I just don't think in my brain he was never a Cav. He might have been. I just don't remember it. So
I don't think he was. Yeah, I doubt it.
That's it. That's the only. I don't even know if he was a Knick. Now that I'm really thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But the Baron Davis Cavalier is the only thing that got me, and that was an insignificant year. I just remember it was a thing. So
yeah, but yeah, jersey number 85, Baron Davis. So he gets this one. But yeah, moving on from that little intro, we got some other topics to tackle today. Obviously, we got the playoffs as we are moving into the conference finals now. Games for that start tomorrow. Like we said, it's Monday, May 20th that we're recording this one. Other than that, though, we also have some awards to get to as we've been going through, one by one or two by two, whatever we can fit. So we'll get to a couple of those later on. That'll be the sixth man of the year as well as the clutch player of the year. And then we'll talk about the Nuggets as well, because that is something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. That's where most of my joy, I would say, draws from the last couple of years. And so, right now it's a pretty dark time. So gotta, air that out. So yeah, that will be most of the main things we'll look at today. Then we got mailbag that, I've been announcing at the end of the last few episodes now. We're going to bring that up top though, just, to get more people to hear about it. We got an email set up for it. It's hooptheory.mailbag@gmail.com. Send in your questions to that. It doesn't have to be related to basketball. It can be literally anything. And once we have a pretty good amount of them, we're just going to go through them and do a whole segment on them, or maybe a whole episode, honestly. So send in your questions to that. And then we got Patreon. They should go check out Patreon, buy me a coffee. Both those are at, /hooptheory.com or .com/hooptheory rather. And then all the links of those things should be found in the description of both the show and the episode, wherever you're listening to this or watching. And then rate the show on any platform you can, I guess. Spotify is the one that I know for sure has ratings. I think Apple Podcasts does as well. And then subscribe and follow the feed wherever you're listening as well. TikTok, go check out the socials. Apparently we have about 10 months left, I would think, based off of quick math, before TikTok is shut down, because I heard from somebody the other day that they have a year. I heard from the first source that it was 6 months.
I believe 6 months is correct.
Oh, but then the other person I talked to yesterday or the other day seemed very sure of that it was a year. Yeah, that they have before they can, or they have left to sell basically. If not, it's either 4 or 5 months or up to 10 to 11. So somewhere in between there. But I'm sure we'll reach 5K before then, because we are very, very close now. We were 9 away the last I looked. We're at 4991. So once that happens, somebody's going to get a jersey of their choice. So yeah, that'll be exciting. But so starting off though with the draft lottery, that was something that happened recently that we actually could have talked about last episode, but for some reason that slipped our minds, which reminds me right off the bat, I didn't even know that this was happening until a few hours later that night. After it happened, I realized that the draft lottery happened that Sunday. I was wait, I didn't even hear about that it was supposed to.
No, and I really think that at its core, this it's sneaking up on the whole universe was in large part due to the fact that there's no franchise breaking potential out there.
So just not a big news story that
like
people
but there isn't an Anthony Edwards, there isn't a Cade Cunningham, there isn't a Zion, there isn't a Jason Tatum, there isn't a Markelle Fultz. Granted, how some of these guys pan out is comical, but at the time, Lonzo Ball, there's not a guy like that like gets the hum really going. There's not a Wemby, so I think it's like a double of like the highs of the high last year. Everything about the draft lottery process was overly covered compared to normal years. And then to have no one that in a normal draft, the best player in this draft would be picked 10th in a normal draft. That's maybe a little bit low, but like
I've heard some people say like 5 or 6. Like it's basically like the top 5 or 6 of a normal draft is just cut off, and then that's this draft. But yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll call it closer to 6. Anyway, the point is there's not like a game-breaking, franchise-changing type of talent. But the thing that I like about this draft class as a fan of a good team is because I feel like the depth of the draft class goes like lower. So like I feel like the talent pool as you go lower doesn't drop off as hard. So like you'll get guys that are in that 15 to 20 range like early in round 2 almost. Like guys that could be that good if put in the right role. There's a lot of guys that if given the right opportunity will be very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Right away, I think.
Yeah, for sure. This honestly reminds me a lot of like the 2013 class, where there's just like so many names that come up for when people are discussing who could go number 1. Like it feels like every place I look has a different person. You know, recently I feel like people are more narrowing it down to Alex Sarr as the main name everywhere. But for a while I was saying like it could be like Mattis Buzelis.
Right after the championship game, I think like the 2 UConn guys were both.
Yeah,
like, I said maybe they'd be one.
Yep.
So
Stephon Castle
and
Klingen.
I was thinking it's Clingham, but it's just Klingen.
Yeah, Donovan Klingen. Who's basically like a Walker Kessler, but a lot of people think he's like Walker Kessler plus, like, you know,
like
a little bit.
Yeah.
Has a little bit more of a ceiling than Walker Kessler, probably. But Walker Kessler's like in a redraft, he's probably like the 12th pick. I don't know, 10th pick, maybe. Something like that.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
And so Klingen is a guy that's probably going to go like top 4 or 5 for sure. So that's kind of a, you know, a little gauge. But he could go 1, though. You know, like that's definitely like in discuss. That's why it reminds me of the 2013 class, because you know, there was no really consensus on who was going to go number 1 there. And like the guy that, at least like the ESPN board or one of the main boards had at 8 on their mock draft, jumped all the way up to number 1 on draft night, you know, to get selected at 1 for the Cavs. And that was Anthony Bennett, like the biggest flop in, you know, first pick history, basically. So I don't know if we're going to see that this year or not, but it seems like there's a lot of pretty solid, like, you know, prospects, just nobody that's like a projected star.
No,
really, like somebody that's a superstar, you know.
If you are a play-in team to like low seed, you are pumped because there's going to be guys that can contribute day 1 that will maybe be available like right away. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very, very fun for them.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think Zachary Richache is the other French guy that a lot of people were talking about. You know,
going pretty high.
Going pretty high, yeah. And then
people have said Reed Shepard, from sharpshooter from Kentucky. The only reason I don't think he's the first overall pick is because the Hawks don't need that. They are like, if we can get someone else that's like on the same level, we don't need to go get another. I mean, he is an insane shooting talent, but it's more the fact that the Hawks have
a lot of guards.
A lot of guards. And then Topic is another guy that I've seen. I mean, we could go for a long time being like,
Topic, I think.
Oh, Topic?
I think because he's from Serbia, right?
I think.
Yeah, so IC would be itch. But And then, because now there's going to be, there's Nikola Jovic, and now there's Nikola Topic.
Oh, yeah. And then Kentucky has another guy.
Dillingham. Rob Dillingham. Yeah, Rob Dillingham. Then there's, I think, Ron Howard. Is that his name?
Ron Holland.
Ron Holland. Yeah, that was just a brain fart. But he's from the G League Ignite with Midas Buzelis. So there's a lot of guys in this draft that have been discussed as going like all over the lottery, basically. So Cody Williams, which is Jalen Williams from like the Santa Clara Jalen Williams from OKC. It's his younger brother, who looks like a very similar type of player to him. I don't know if he has quite the same ceiling, but he's a guy that I've seen people put at number 1 from Colorado.
Also, that's the other thing that's fun. Don't the Thunder have like the 11th or 12th pick in the draft? We should probably say the draft order. That would probably be good.
Yeah. So, looking at the order, the Thunder do have the 12th pick. And what I find so interesting about this order, the lottery results, is when you juxtapose them with what the odds were for where the teams should end up, usually you don't see as much change as there was in this year. So number 1, who got the number 1 pick overall, was the Atlanta Hawks, which
3%.
Right? They had 3% chance of nailing that because they were 10th in odds. So it's like really not many teams you could think of that need the number 1 pick less than the Atlanta Hawks in this whole lottery. But at the same time, it's like it's a crazy win to jump from 10 to 1, but it's like the worst year you could have done it because the number 1 pick is like,
why would you use your luck this year? Type of thing. The other thing that I don't fully like, this is another thing, just in large thought of the draft lottery. It does feel wrong that a play-in team can get the number 1 overall pick. That feels wrong a little bit.
Why?
I don't know. It just does.
But so before the play-in existed, it didn't feel wrong.
No, I understand that, but
the play. So it's the same place in the lottery.
No, I understand it's the same placement, and the odds didn't change. But having a chance to be in the playoffs by being hot at the right time.
Yeah.
There's a world.
I feel like it just kind of ruins the play-in if you make it so they can't win it, because then no one a lot of those teams are realistically, a lot of them would be like, well, I'd rather have lottery odds or a chance at getting a top 5 pick than just making the playoffs and getting knocked out right away.
Yeah. That.
And you want teams to try to get those spots and compete.
That's yes. In my brain, that just feels weird. Because now there's a universe where a play-in team gets hot. This is I'm not even going to go down this rabbit hole because it's so logical that it's never going to happen. So never mind.
Okay. But yeah, the Heat last year who made it all the way to the finals, you're saying what if they got Zion one year or something like that?
No, that's literally so I'll just say it. There's a world where a play-in team gets hot, hits some injuries, wins an NBA championship, and gets the first overall pick.
And that'd be wild. But I feel like that shouldn't be not allowed to happen.
Yeah, I guess.
I like the lottery because it discourages tanking. And
I know. I like how the NBA sets up the lottery. It's not that the lottery is the issue. I do feel though that if you are perennially bad, you shouldn't be able to get kicked out of the top 3 over and over again. Isn't this the 3rd year Detroit's had the best odds and gotten kicked out of the top 5? Or gotten kicked out of the top 3?
Something like that.
Because Cade was their first overall pick. And then every year after that, they've still had the best chances. And they've been the 5th overall pick.
Oh, so Spurs last year, yeah, because they would have been 2nd worst last year. But which is the same exact odds.
Yes, but it's also oof.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Cade was four drafts ago. 3 seasons and then 4.
2021 draft, I believe, because that would have been the draft right after Edwards. So this will be their 22, 23 have happened. This will be the 3rd draft that has happened since that draft.
So I think that this is the third time they had the 25% chance to get the first overall pick. Or 14% chance. Isn't it when it used to be the 25 when you okay. So the 14% chance.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've been kicked out of the top 3 down to 5.
Yeah. And so
every time.
This is just a funny year. Like I heard Motown Noah, like the YouTuber. He has a podcast, and I was listening to how he was joking about how like the Pistons, you could argue like what would be funnier if the Pistons won got number 1, and it's like this is the worst year you could have finally got number 1, and
again.
Or this outcome where they fall all the way to 5, and it's like still,
which is the lowest I think they can fall.
Yeah. So like the top odds though, since they updated them a few years ago to level them out a bit to make it less advantageous for the worst teams. Like I think if you have the worst odds, you have to be within the top 5 at least. Something along those lines. There's like a barrier to where they can't fall below. And so the Blazers or the Pistons have basically met that fate of like the worst they could possibly fall. The Knicks, that happened to them in that Zion draft where they had like either the worst, I think they had the worst odds or the best odds, but they fell like all the way to 5 or something like that in that year. Well, no, they would have got 3rd because RJ Barrett. Yeah. So I think that was the big thing though. They were really hoping for Zion, and they thought they were going to get the number 1 pick, but they ended up not. But looking at like how the rest of this shook out, there's Hawks at 1, the Wizards at 2, Rockets at 3, Spurs at 4, Pistons 5, like we said, Hornets at 6, Blazers at 7, and then the Spurs have another pick at 8, so they have 4 and 8. This one's from Toronto that they have the rights to. And then number 9 is the Grizzlies, number 10 is the Jazz, number 11 is the Bulls, number 12 is the Thunder, which they got the rights from Houston in one of their trades that they've made. I think that must have been from the Russell Westbrook trade. But then the Kings at 13, and then the Blazers at 14, who they got that pick from Golden State for the Wiseman trade, maybe that 3-team trade that sent Wiseman to Detroit. But yeah, so that's interesting though, that we got the Spurs with the 4th and 8th pick, which, it helped that they experimented the way that they did with this season. And that's going to allow them to build their team around Wemby even more with a vision in mind, getting to pick from this year's class. And looking at the odds though, like how the teams jumped around, there wasn't too many other crazy changes other than like, I'm pretty sure the OKC could have had up to 3 picks.
Oh, but protections and stuff like that.
Yeah. They ended up with 1, something like that, I think. I'm looking at it. But yeah, Hawks jumping from 10 to 1 is just crazy. But yeah, like we said, there's not like a lot of talent there to choose from. But also it's like one of those years where it's like you couldn't really go wrong. There's, a lot of different options. And like it's the best year for like honestly like the Pistons to end up at 5. Even though it's funny that they've ended up at 5. It's like 5 is basically the same as the first pick almost, It feels that way, at least from how a lot of people are viewing this.
You know what I really want to happen? I know it won't happen, but I really, really want the Spurs to get Stephon Castle and Klingon. I really want that to happen.
Just because they're UConn teammates?
The UConn teammates, but I also feel like fit-wise, Castle's like that just defensive kind of like
wing
hustle guy that every team needs, and he
can handle the ball.
That it feels like the Spurs don't have necessarily. You know what I mean? Like it feels like it just. I don't know. I think that would be a good fit, both because a Pop likes guys like that. I think that would be a good one. We'll do a whole, and then I think that giving Wemby like another like big body to like have as a teammate. Mm-hmm. Especially with more teams leaning into the like Jokic style, having that like center that kind of like dices things up and runs the game through them. Having a 2 center or 2 big lineup, I think is like a legitimate style that's going to work, as I'm sure we'll talk about more as we get into like today. But I just think that would be just a good idea. I would like that, and then story-wise, it would be awesome. And yeah, that's it. That's all.
And honestly, that could work because like it's just hard to predict honestly where all these guys are going to go.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, that's my favorite type of draft to watch and be involved in is ones where you don't really know who's going to go number 1 or who's going to go where. So it's a lot more up in the air, a lot more surprises, a lot more suspense, which is more fun for the viewer. But yeah, so I guess moving on from the lottery onto our next topic today. We're going to look at the conference finals, which have now been set in stone. In the West, we're going to have the Mavericks facing off against the Wolves. And in the East, we're going to have the Celtics facing off against the Indiana Pacers, which is just like a feel-good story, kind of everybody should give them a pat on the back for making it this far. They're not going to make it any farther. But what? This
is where I'm at. And this, we talked about this. I'm going to show. I would have rather had the Knicks, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But both of these teams are not going to beat the Celtics. Yeah, of course the Knicks, you mean the team that has like 6 people who are in the infirmary?
Even if they were healthy, let's say like Josh Hart doesn't get hurt. I know, just strictly as how they match up with the Celtics. You're saying this, get ready for an elimination, Game 6. Aaron Nesmith is going to have like 45 points. Because that's what happens to the Celtics, is some ex-Celtic has like a revenge game. And I am terrified of Aaron Nesmith specifically.
What are the Pacers going to do to you?
I don't think that this is fast. I feel like I'm going to be sweating. For too long. I'm wrong.
I think you are way too worried about this. Maybe, I guess, if the Pacers all of a sudden start playing way better than they have this entire postseason.
Oh, you mean like when they shot 67% in Game 7?
Against a team that had nobody?
Yeah.
The Celtics are a way better defense than what the Knicks were trying to do there at the very end with their broken bodies rolling up the floor.
Also, at what point does Tibbs be required by the front office of the Knicks to have a medical coach that's no, he needs to stop?
To be fair, this year he didn't have a lot of options because of how injured they were already coming into this.
But just OG walking out there and you're he is not okay.
Yeah.
He should not be playing. And then Josh Hart, I was convinced he had a punctured lung or something in his abdomen. I didn't know what was wrong. But the way that he was holding it, and I was watching the games with some people that don't watch basketball, they're typical basketball players whine. I'm no, if he's holding his stomach, something is very, very wrong. There's a lot of guys on the basketball court that you could make a claim like that about. Josh Hart is not one of them. Absolutely. He handles his whatever business he needs to handle. He toughs through it, and he still did until I think he couldn't breathe. He was I can't do this, coach. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Game 6 was a lot like that too. That was the game he
got hurt in. Yep.
Yeah, or hurt it or whatever he did on that Siakam. He was boxing out Siakam, but. Yeah, so it's a very physical series, but it's just, looking at the Pacers versus the Celtics, though, I just don't think that there's anything that the Pacers are going to be able to do. You have everything you could possibly want to defend the guys that do anything on their team. And Matherin's still out, right? They're not going to have Matherin this whole postseason.
Yeah, but we don't have KP. I've been listening to the talking heads too much. I don't know. Is
Miles Turner going to turn into... Is he going to be Hakeem Olajuwon or something?
Probably, because if it's going to happen to any team, it's going to happen to the Celtics.
Are we talking about the same person right now? Miles Turner? You see him having a big playoff series? I don't know.
It's going to be a game. It'll be handing off the baton. One random guy will just turn into... Did you think Gabe Vincent was going to be that guy? Or Cody Martin?
Gabe Vincent or those guys, both those guys are cut from a very different cloth than a guy like Miles Turner, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like Miles Turner.
I could see Aaron Nesmith doing it. I'm just.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that's still like he's more of a heart hustle. Like there's not a lot on the talent side that you can really rely on for like a winning you a series.
Yeah.
You know, like he might win you a game. This is no better than the Cavs team you just went through.
No, I know that. But it's literally I'm having like phantom sphere of we win by too much so we're not tested, but then we lose once. And so then we're like, oh, they don't have it in.
You'll probably lose a game. I mean, that's just how basketball goes.
Also, I was thinking about this because the narrative of the Celtics have had the easiest walk to the finals is true. But then my counterpoint is, do we think that some of these injured teams, and I looped this in because the Nuggets last year had the same argument.
Yeah, but I'd say a lot more unfounded. Yeah, that was based off more of like seeds instead of like these teams are just completely undermanned. But
yes, but my thing is like, I think that the Cavs team from last series would be a problem in the playoffs. Like we talk about it, how like the NBA the past 3 years is on this wild level of everyone's competitive, a lot of parity.
Yeah,
so like you take that Cavs team.
They could have won in the other series. They could be if they were on the other side instead of the Pacers, they could have beat the Knicks for sure.
No, I'm even talking about. I'm talking about like going back in like time. Like put that Cavs team in the NBA 8 years ago. They're a pretty good team, even though they're all hurt and beat up, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're not like winning championships by any means, but they're like a fine playoff team. Yeah, the Celtics have gotten lucky conference finals with injuries, but also they win in 5. That's not like people don't get swept. It's like I get the Suns did, but like it's not a super normal.
Yeah, it's very normal for it to go 5. That's there's nothing wrong with that. I haven't seen any of this personally. I know you probably do because you're a Celtics fan, so you just more of it comes across your timeline and stuff. But if you want to, like, if it makes you feel any better, I have not heard really any of this, like people hating on the Celtics and like saying that they're soft and I haven't really heard much of that, to be honest. I've heard like them say that it's the easiest path, but that doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong. It's like it's not their fault that it's been the easiest path.
Yeah,
you know, no, they haven't struggled.
And also, it's like if they like struggled and then the next games were close, but they're winning. Their playoff point differential is 18.5.
Per game. That's very good.
That's insane.
Yeah,
anyway, I don't need to keep you're on my side.
I'm not hearing anybody say that they're struggling. Are people saying they're struggling?
No, like ESPN, Celtics? It's like a legitimate thing. Are the Celtics like even good enough to win a title?
Well, that's a different question. I feel like because they are going through the easiest route, so we don't really know if they are like the best team in the league or not, you know? But also, just because they're going through the easiest route, they aren't like struggling mightily with it. They're winning like a championship contender should.
They lose at home, which is dumb. I'd rather they lost their game 3s instead of their game 2s, but it always requires like a very like extraordinarily hot night from the other team. And then the Celtics adjust game 3. Like there's never a game 3's a struggle. Anyway, I think I'm getting to the point where it's not fun anymore. I'm getting stressed. I'm like, okay, because of like how the path we have, if we don't at the minimum make it to the finals, we will. I actually already took work off for game 4. And I told my wife finals? I will be in Dallas or in Minneapolis. I don't care which one.
Yeah.
So we will win, but I'm just like, man, I'm just starting to feel it a little bit. But I think it's like Celtics in 5 lean 6 more than 4. But I'm like, there's like a world where I just am scared. I also think that Kristaps can come back. In the series, they just won't have him do that.
Yeah,
unless it's like dicey.
Smart thing.
Yeah, unless it's like dicey, they might have him playing like the closeout game for like 15 minutes. Also,
you guys don't have any other injuries going on, do you? That I can think of, or that I know of. Yeah,
other than Al being 37,
Yeah, but yeah.
Also, I get that Ant is very good and all that. We'll talk about this later, actually. Just that's it. That's all. I'm sick of Jason Tatum hate on Talking Heads. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I pick Celtics for sure.
I also
agree
do,
with you.
but
It's like 5 or... I could see... I don't think it's crazy to say 6 over 4, but I feel pretty confident about the Celtics more than I've felt about the Nuggets against the Timberwolves or at any point. Or yeah,
because the Timberwolves are way better than the Pacers.
And they match up with the Nuggets a lot better than the Pacers.
It's like a rock, paper, scissors, almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. So Jokic says that they're better. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
He said that the team that wins, if a team beats you in a 7-game series, that they're just better, in his opinion.
Also, this whole season I forgot why I don't like Michael Malone all that much until his post game of the Game 7.
Oh,
like I kind of
I know you don't
about,
like Michael Malone.
It's not that I don't like, but like that part of him irritates the crap out of me.
He's just like a firecracker. He's just
he was like, how do you work through the blowing a 20-point lead? He goes, that's a stupid question. And
he said next
I got the
question,
quote wrong, but
yeah, he said next question, and then he says, it's hard. Like, I forget about blowing a 20-point lead. The season's over. Like, that's what you guys don't understand.
Stupid ass question.
And then he murmured, stupid ass questions after that, like plural. So, which I feel like is a little bit less direct.
That is less direct, but I also I don't think that in itself was a bad question.
Oh, no, not at all. But you understand. In my opinion, if I'm that reporter, I'm perfectly content with that. That was like the perfect response to what my question was. Your question
got the most sound clips. Yeah.
And not even that. He answered the question perfectly, which was like, how do you work through, like, what are the emotions? Or like, he asked about how it felt to lose that 20-point lead. And then he like snapped at him.
That's how he felt. Yeah.
That's exactly how he felt. But I get people think that that's like classless, and which I understand that. It's just Michael Malone. He runs. You could say this more about him than like anybody, and that's saying something because there's like Tom Thibodeau in this same NBA. But he runs as hot as anybody as a coach.
No, and 80% of the time I'm like, but I just that's the one thing that irritates me about him as a coach. The same thing, like Kirk Ferentz at the college level does it too, and it just that aspect that people have irritates me.
When you like you belittle a reporter or something. I mean, Popovich has done that so much.
Popovich, Belichick, I'm all of them where it's like you get paid to answer questions. Like, I get it, it's not like fun.
Yeah,
but like sometimes I just think that they go too far.
Yeah,
or they just handle it weirdly. I don't know.
I agree. Know. I would not respond to a reporter that way. But that's just me. We're very different personality type and like I probably wouldn't be as good of a coach as Michael Malone or Greg Popovich, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's advantages and disadvantages to that. And I get people in the media like you're gonna pop their takes off on stuff like that. I still really like Michael Malone as a coach. Obviously, you're not. Like, not everything's perfect, and I would say that is a flaw, and that it is a...
No, as a coach, for sure. But as just a viewer, watching him like do things, that's the thing that grinds my gears sometimes. But I'm not trying to take anything away from him as a coach, because he is on the fast track to being like a name that gets brought up as like this era's coach if Popovich stops soon. Like, I like really think that like
as a whole
he's
NBA.
that good. He's like that. Spoelstra, I always forget because he just is quietly just doing that. But I feel Malone is almost as responsible for the Nuggets' success as I think Jokic is, just with how he's navigated all the pieces around Jokic.
That I don't know about that, but I mean he's an important piece, but I would not put him even close to Nikola Jokic. You don't think with another coach Jokic could have won a title already?
I don't know.
I guess agree to disagree on that one, but there's just some guys that I mean with Duncan and Popovich, like Duncan would have won titles.
I can think of coaches that I don't think would have won a title, even though they had Jokic.
Yeah, you could do that with anything, though. Like, I mean more of like, there's coaches that you could swap in there and would have been fine. And, or like, in running this, simulation over again, who knows how many times, all of the injuries and stuff happened right at that time, right when Jokic is reaching his pinnacle. Maybe there's I mean, it's very possible 2021 we were looking like the best team in the league before the injuries, before Michael Porter and Jamal Murray got injured. So we could have won a title then. And
maybe in my brain the only thing is like the consistent parts of what have worked about the Nuggets have been Malone and Jokic.
Yeah, it's and huge,
maybe that's what's
sure.
like messing with my. I'll stick by it because I don't think I'm as far off as the reaction, maybe. But
yeah, I'm
because those are the only two real constants. Is like Jokic being Jokic and Michael Malone navigating whatever he needed to as the coach side.
So I guess probably where our divide is I'm saying that I think that Jokic definitely could have won a title still. Like, it's not impossible for him to have won a title with another coach. I think you're saying that it's not guaranteed that he would which I would agree with that.
Yeah. It's like a coin flip in my brain almost. Like, I don't think that. But yeah, that's rabbit hole that we'll have later on because we've got Nuggets Corner coming up.
But
we can talk about the Western Conference now because I think the East is pretty much. Aaron Nesmith is I'm just terrified. That's all.
It's funny that's the person you're terrified of the most. Like, not
because that's who always does it to the Celtics.
Halliburton.
That's always who does it. It's never the one that makes sense. It's always the random off the wall, like Max Strus. His best playoff series was against the Celtics because he still cares that he got cut like 4 years ago. Sorry, you're not taking playing time from Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, or Gordon Hayward. I apologize. Back in that time, it was the correct thing to do, Max Strus. I'm glad you figured out a career down in Miami and now out in Cleveland. But it's.
But so if Nesmith does to you what Max Strus did last round, are you really scared? Like, were you scared of, It's like, it might be a little bit of... When he started the
closeout game with 5 threes in the first quarter, I was a little scared. Because he just came out and hit 5 threes, just like no one was there. That was a little scary. Obviously, there's a lot of basketball to be played, but I've also watched Dean Wade hit like 6 threes in a quarter and ended 10-game win streak.
No, it happens, yeah. Definitely
it's just that tall 3-point shooting guy that we don't close out on like we should because we don't think about him as a threat, and then it just happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, going over to the West, though, we got the Mavs and the Timberwolves. This one, I lean Timberwolves right off the bat. I think that you could argue the Wolves have the best player, but I would say it's more consensus, definitely Luka.
Yep. But they've both had terrible games this playoffs. So as weird as this sounds, it's who has less is who's gonna win, I think.
So you would say they've had terrible games, but Jason Tatum hasn't?
No, I think Jason Tatum's had a couple bad games.
Oh, I thought you said last
Luka's episode had a terrible game.
Had a terrible game. I'm trying to think of what one
game was. 5, where he had he shot. I need to find the stat line.
Yeah, he's had bad shooting nights for sure.
It wasn't just, but he didn't. He also didn't have the rest of the thing. He didn't look like Luka.
Yeah, he looked hobbled and everything. Yeah, so I could see that one. Yeah, for Luka for sure. But honestly, as watching, just from watching that series, I heard you and some other people right after Game 5. Yeah, Game 5 when you guys were saying that Ant was abysmal or and I was I honestly didn't even notice that Ant was abysmal. And then I went and looked at the box score and he didn't shoot well. But the thing he had 102 or something like that touches that game, or 112, something like that, something insane. His career record, because they didn't have Mike Conley or any ball handler.
He was playing as the point guard.
Yeah, and so
essentially.
he was bringing up, and also their bigs aren't like the Nuggets bigs where they can bring the ball up the floor if you need them to. It's much more like it's just him and like
it was him or Nah. Him and Nah were the only two that were doing it like the whole game.
Yeah, and we would just double and as soon as he crossed half court just to get the ball out of his hands, and nobody else was hurting us. Was basically what it was, and that was happening in the first half of Game 7 also.
But then like Nah would take the ball down the court, and Ant would be standing wide open and like on the elbow for 3, or whatever that weird thing is. It's not whatever. I want to call it the wing. Yeah, on the wing for 3, wide open, nobody near him. He misses like 3 of those shots.
Yeah, which he just was never in a rhythm. Which like, yeah, like he didn't have a good shooting game. I'm not trying to argue he did, but like it was more like I didn't feel like he just was crapping the bed in the way that a lot of people were saying. Like it was just that the scheme that we were running was getting the ball out of his hands, and then like the few opportunities he had to actually like shoot the ball, it was like his, basically his first clean looks that he got. And he's not really a great, like, just catch and shoot. That's not really his job normally. So, it's just not that crazy to me that he wasn't converting on those. But as soon as he started to get like a couple, layups in transition or, a couple threes to fall down, that's when I was getting very anxious because I was like, as soon as Ant starts seeing the ball go through the hoop, he's going to be able to cook. Yeah.
Also, I will counter, I don't think Jason Tatum has had a terrible playoff game.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think Jason Tatum's worst game has not been... Anyway, it does not matter. I don't need to go down that rant again. Just because, like... It's whenever the graphic is put up and it only shows the shooting splits and points, it irritates me. Because that's not a basketball game. Like, at all.
Mm-hmm.
To just be like, oh... Well, they only had 18 points, and they shot like 8 for 20 or whatever he shot in that game. Where he had 18 points, and 0 for 5
also,
from 3.
It's not really like Jamal either. Where Jamal, it feels like if he's not shooting well, he's just hurting the team.
He's not doing anything else because he doesn't have.
He has some other things that he can do, but like it feels like he goes as his shooting goes. If that makes sense, like he's like just not there or not. Like a lot of times when he's in bad shooting games, he ends up our leading shot taker just because he tries to shoot himself out of it,
out of a hole.
Yeah. And which just ends up hurting a lot, honestly. Staying with the Wolves and Mavs though, I do pick the Mavs or the Wolves to come out of this one just because their defense is just something that I feel like is going to give the Mavs trouble. The Mavs don't have they just got through a team that had a lot of guards, a lot of people to put on their main 2 guys. But this team has just as many. And, down in the paint, they have way more size and things to just deter, closeouts, like attacking closeouts. And
the 10 points a game that Kyrie gave them via lobs to Lively or whoever was down there in the paint, he would just throw it up.
Gobert defending that 2-man game is going to be a lot more hard to deal with.
Honestly, I weirdly feel like this series is pretty similar for the T-Wolves, and they need to make sure that there's the way they win is if PJ Washington, because they'll handle all of the main pieces, but PJ Washington needs to be off to comfortably win the series. Because because he's been there, maybe not MVP is not the right word, but he has been the X factor over the bump in the playoffs for this Mavs team without a question.
In the second round, I'd say through the first 5 games, he was definitely their MVP for sure. But after that, he had a couple not huge games. Maybe the first 4 is what I'm thinking of. But yeah. But I think that PJ Washington might struggle quite a bit against this Wolves team just because all of the wings on our team, at least, it seemed like this was just the worst matchup possible for them with Aaron Gordon. And Aaron Gordon had a couple big games, but most of it was, hard to get going for a lot of it because of just the size and the versatility that they have on the wing there. It's just hard to deal with. Like, because if it's not Jade McDaniels, then they're rotating in Kyle Anderson, and somebody that is just like a very capable starting, level defender to put on somebody. They're just very deep in that way. But so you think though that you lean Wolves as well?
I think both of these series go longer than the general consensus of like both of these are pretty quick. Or not.
Do people think this one's going to be quick?
No, I think that like it's also obviously like the overreactions off of how last night went.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely part of it. But I think both of these like series will be not necessarily nail biters, but I just think they'll be harder battles. They might even be like the Nuggets against the Lakers last year, where it's like games were close, but they still won in 5 type of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I tend to lean T-Wolves also because having the best player helps. And if you don't have the best player, if you have like the next 3, that is also kind of big. But and also they have the Wolves are like anti-Kyrie to a T. They can just like, depending on how the whistle goes, they can just kind of bully Kyrie into like, oh, if you do something pretty, we'll just not care and be in the way.
Yeah. And the one thing that makes me a little bit more like, maybe the Mavs do have something here, is Kyrie is different than Jamal in the way that I feel like when you really pressure Kyrie full court, he almost sometimes seems like he thrives in chaos in ball handling situations.
Think of every like major Kyrie ball handling like
highlight
moment. It's always like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Type of like dribbling around and throwing and
having to like split all these double teams and people running at him. So if you're coming all the way up to him, even if you're one of the best defenders in the world, you got to be pretty locked in, pretty ready for his misdirection and, And
I also think that Kyrie is also, and this is a thing that I think he's always done, but like whenever he switches teams, it kind of goes away and then comes back, like as he gets familiar with the teammates. He turns into like the scariest point guard or like primary distributor when he's like getting attacked from all the, like I noticed it in the OKC series. It was game 4 and Luka was, it was game 4 of the game Luka was off because it's the game that I remember watching. Anyway, Kyrie was like, nothing was really going. He was not given any room. And so he just was constantly like intentionally baiting a guy to play help and then like making the pass. Like it's Kyrie Irving. Obviously he can do all that stuff, but I think as he gets more familiar with teammates as he is with a lot of these Mavs guys, it like goes to the next level of like, this is kind of crazy type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. But I just wanted to look up the odds on this really quick, just to see what, get a barometer, I guess, on what other people are thinking. And the odds are kind of interesting, honestly. But I'm not surprised by them, really. I think the odds definitely reflect how I feel about the Boston series, at least.
Yes, no, I know Boston's favored disgustingly. It's like negative 12 to 780 or something like that.
This is on DraftKings.
Sorry, minus 1,200, not 12, but...
Yeah, I got what you meant. But minus 900 to plus 600 in Indiana. So, pretty major, though, for sure. Timberwolves are favored minus 170, and Dallas is plus 145. So that's actually pretty close. I mean, it's like, I guess, what's the closest you can even be? Minus 100 would be the...
I think.
Would be the closest. So that's pretty tight, I guess, as they come. And I think that reflects kind of how I feel about it too, to be honest. But yeah, so I guess moving on from the conference finals and into Nuggets corner, because, this team is kind of my, it's my ride or die. I watch every single game. The only game I still haven't watched, which I was planning on watching at some point, was one of the last games of the season, of the regular season, where we lost to the Spurs. And, I feel like I probably will go check that out at one point because it's like Wemby's almost like his arrival in some ways. As great as his rookie season was, this was kind of like the final cherry on top that he put on top of it, and where he had 17 points in 3 minutes, I believe, at one point in the second half. and the Nuggets lost, their composure and lost a big lead, kind of like how they just did last night to the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is a great segue because for those who don't know, we were up by 15. The Nuggets were at halftime. It was 53-38. We held them to 38 points in the first half. We lost that game, which is just insane to think about. Honestly, I'm still kind of shocked about it. Like you said, I think in one of those texts last night that it doesn't feel real. It didn't really feel real for a while after I shut the TV off, honestly. But yeah, it's a weird feeling that I'm like, I was kind of chalking us up as going to the finals, and that was like a done deal. But yeah, this was an ugly way for us to go out, especially how we fought back in this series and made it into something that, was just kind of remarkable. Like the way that if we would have sealed it and finished it out, it was like, man, that's going to be one for the legacy for a lot of these players and for this team. But yeah, it's just a little rough with in that fourth quarter, so many shots that were like in a game that neither team scored 100 points. Down the stretch of those shots were pretty big backbreakers. One of them being a fadeaway turnaround 17-footer from Rudy Gobert, a shot that he will never make again in the rest of his days. He made that. I gasped so loud I scared like my dogs and my wife in my house. Like they were like, what is going on?
That's when I started laughing. I audibly laughed.
I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe it. That especially because not that long before that, he made some other crazy, stupid shot that I don't even remember what it was, but he made something, Rudy Gobert did, that I was like, what? He's making that? It was like some like finesse, post move that he was still kind of far away from the basket, I think, if I remember correctly. But then, yeah, that turnaround fadeaway that it just touched the net and that was it. I was like, there's no way that I'm watching this right now.
No, if you like look at it again, it looks like Dirk. The way his body moved,
I thought about when I texted you, I almost put Dirk fade. Like that's what I almost texted.
Yeah, if you could like some way just do the stick figures, you could show that to every basketball historian in the history of humanity, and every single one of them would have guessed someone that's not Rudy Gobert. It didn't look like it was him. Not even that the shot went in, but how his body all of a sudden wasn't rigid anymore. It just became like he looked like an actual basketball player playing offense instead of like this weird clunky.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Rudy Gobert does not shoot jump shots ever. Like that's not a thing he does. He like in a normal like offensive flow, he will not take a jump shot ever unless it is at the end of the shot clock. Like that one was, I'm pretty sure.
It was.
Yeah, there's no other way he would have shot something like
Honestly,
that.
It would have been better if it wasn't. It was like 17 seconds left on the shot.
But and then
he hits a 17-foot fadeaway.
He made every free throw also down the stretch, which was annoying.
He missed one.
Oh, he did?
He did miss one.
Felt like he made
He had an and one and he missed one.
Oh, yes, that was the shot that was the shot he made before. That I was like, what is he doing? That's not a shot Rudy Gobert makes. Was that and one? I was like, what is going on? That is that is exactly that shot. And I said ball don't lie. I said ball don't lie after he missed that because I was like, that was not a real thing that happened. That was luck. But
there was a foul, but the fact that
it was a foul, but yeah.
The fact that the ball went in was the ball don't lie part.
Exactly. So that was rough, honestly, just witnessing that. And then on top of that, this is a lot more excusable because Mike Conley's made shots kind of like that before, I think. But I don't know about in that big of a moment in that exact way. But like that crazy end of the shot clock prayer he throws up from three, that just drains. That was a backbreaker. There was another play. There was just like some defensive execution down the stretch that made me mad, like Jamal Murray on a play where we, sent two at Ant. So then, the weak side is overloaded with offensive players. We have to scramble to try to recover. They start swinging it. And so Mike moves up to, Michael Porter Jr. moves up to cover. Whoever was at the top of the key, I think it was maybe somebody like that, Jaden McDaniels. No, it was or it definitely was Jaden McDaniels at least, because Jaden McDaniels was on the wing, and Jamal So Jamal was stuck between Jaden McDaniels on the wing and Mike Conley in the corner. So for those who don't know, Mike Conley is arguably the greatest corner 3-point shooter to ever touch a basketball. Like that's like if on 2K, like he has the Hall of Fame corner specialist bat, you know, that's
he
that
does
type,
actually.
I would assume. I've heard before from like a lot of analytics people that like a Conley corner three is like one of the best shots ever. But like I'm sure people at the Nuggets, I'm sure somebody knows something like that, you know, that's on the coaching staff. But like Jamal Murray just shoot like he has the choice between do I go and take the pass away from Jaden McDaniels up here on the wing, who's like, yeah, he's a fine 3-point shooter, but he's not like a
he also
lights
should
out.
be a Nugget.
Yeah, he should, but that's a different topic. He's not like a blazing 3-point shooter.
By
any means.
If it goes in, you're not surprised, but you're not like expecting it to go in.
Yeah, but Mike Conley, at least most seasons of his career, is like a 40% 3-point shooter in general, and then add in the fact that he's like even extra dangerous from the corner. He just leaves him wide open. Nobody's even contested a shot from Mike Conley in the corner with like 4 minutes left in the game. You know, it's like why? What are we doing?
Is that when you texted like you in our texting? There was not like I don't like how close this game is getting. And then there was like despair. Is that when kind of the despair really started? Was that 4-minute point where he hit that three?
Probably around that. I think one of the first despair texts was about the Gobert turnaround. I think I said that's where I was like, this is like there's dark magic at work. Like this is not real. Like, you know what I mean? This is just, it's evil. Honestly, I was condemning it. I was shunning it, and I was making sure it didn't get into my house.
Putting salt around the windows or whatever people do.
Yeah. And I don't know. You don't have Instagram anymore, correct? I need to.
No.
Yeah. So I put you in a group text or a group message with our friends from the Hoop Journal podcast, Dion and Mitch, because I don't know if you heard the episode they did right after game 1, but Mitch perfectly predicted the rest of the series after game 1.
Really?
Yes, he said that he thinks, and I don't know why, what made him say it. Like Dion didn't give a prediction he just wanted to give like a prediction of how the series was going to close out. He says that the Wolves were going to go up 2-0, which was like Dion right away was like, oh wow, you think the Wolves are going to win both games in Denver? And he's like, yeah, I think the Wolves are going to go up 2-0. And then the Nuggets, Jokic is just going to become a man possessed and win the next 3. So Jokic is going to bring him back all the way to 3-2. And then after that, the Wolves are going to come back and win the series in 7. Like, I was at multiple points during, like, while this was happening, I was like, wow, it's crazy that, once we got to 3-2, I was like, it's crazy that Mitch was right about, up to this point. But I was like, but I think we'll still win. We'll win the series. He's not going to actually be right. He actually did end up turning out to be right. And I think that, honestly, he might have just spoke that into existence. And that is this, the dark magic that I'm talking about, that the universe willed it, into happening.
Well, our podcast also has a fortune teller.
Not to that level. Have you ever? I don't know if you've had something that
after
crazy.
Game 2, I said the Celtics are going to go 3-0 and then take it to Game 7.
You said 3-1 because you said that they would win the Celtics would win Game 3. So it's just a slightly different order, but
it still was wrong.
Yeah, but it was still very close.
Right, that they get to Game 7 and then crap the bed in Boston.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler would have like a 69-point game.
Yeah.
He only had like 30 something, but we.
Yeah, no, so you were very close. Yeah, so I should give you more. For sure, definitely very close though. That is, I don't know why I pushed back on that hard. That goes back to like last episode. As I'm going through it, editing it, I don't know why I pushed back on a couple of the points that I did as hard as I did. Like, because I kind of feel like I agree with what you're saying, and this goes with the Nuggets corner that we're doing. We talked about Game 5. How that was like Jokic's magnum opus, essentially. And you made the comment of Jokic got in a bag that I don't think we even knew existed, or we didn't know he had.
I wasn't aware that it was like that level of bag. Yeah.
Yeah, which I still don't like. I wouldn't fully endorse that because I'm like, the fact that he did that did not surprise me, but it is definitely, I would say that is like that is the first time he's done it at that level on that stage, and with those like, that high of stakes, against the defense that is like considered one of the best ever by a lot of people, during the series. And then also the team that everybody says rightfully so, that is like designed to beat this Denver team in specific, and against the 4-time, defensive player of the year. Like, yeah, that's a pretty just insane thing. And I should have.
And you worded it better than I ever could right there. Of like, it was just the sheer number of factors of like, yeah, I knew that Jokic was like a freak, but like to do it with, I can't, unless he's like physically ill, not another single factor on this planet being against him. Like everything humanly possible was stacked against him, and he still just reached into his bag like it wasn't that big of a deal and just did it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So I agree with you, but like that zone that he was in, I feel like I've definitely witnessed that on multiple occasions against like literally the best defenders ever. Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, all those guys. Like he just, at certain points, he's just looked like no matter what somebody does, he's just going to will the ball into the basket, and it's like there's nothing you can do to stop it. And so, yeah, but him doing it in that big of a game with all of those other factors, yeah, it's just like makes it for sure, like, if not his best game ever, then his second best game ever. Because I'd say game 1 of the Western Conference Finals last season was very, very big as well. But, yeah, it's definitely in that range for sure.
I feel like if they win this series, that one takes his number 1 spot without a question. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Not to jump the shark, because we were going to talk about like how big that game 5, like kind of like legacy wise, what it meant to Jokic.
Which I guess we can start there. Yeah, like with Jokic's game 5, like I'm kind of wondering how people will remember that game now, how it will be remembered now that the Nuggets ultimately fell short and did not win the series. Because if they did win the series, and especially if they went on to win the championship, which it was like very, I wouldn't say likely, but like plausible if the Nuggets did make it past this Wolves team. I'd say the Celtics or the Nuggets would be the favorites. Would you agree with that?
I think it would be the Nuggets. No, I think it would be the Nuggets.
Yeah, okay, for sure.
I don't think it. Yeah, that's all. It would be the Nuggets.
Just because you guys haven't had Porzingis.
No, I just think that the blind belief in the West is alive and well. It's not blind. That the belief that the West is so much just better than the East is very healthy at this point in the season.
You're saying like just betting odds favorite, like you're not even saying your own opinion.
My opinion is, if you think of, I have actually, like, people think that it's to the same degree of like, people would say like whoever comes out of Pacers Knicks is losing to the Celtics. It's like the same thing, but like, whoever wins the East is just going to lose to the West. And it's not like a question. That's like an actual take I've seen like a healthy amount of, which I think is absurd.
I do too. Yeah, I would agree.
Because my personal betting favorite now, with the Nuggets out, is the Celtics. Because I don't think that. I think we got the best possible version of the Timberwolves because of how they match up with the Nuggets. Like, you're not going to have something so perfectly like aligned for them again.
You could
in terms of the matchup, because anyway, the Celtics don't have anybody that you can get Ant swapped onto and feel like you can do anything. And you also like the Celtics don't need the paint,
but definitely not like where you're feeling like there's no chance for the Celtics,
With Ant, when you get to a certain level of like offensive superstarness, there's not going to be someone that you can like hold to nothing, but like.
I mean, there's like in the Nuggets series, for example, what made me so mad about, and this was an adjustment that, Michael Malone kind of went to in Game 3, but did not really return to near as much later on. Like Christian Brown got a decent amount of time on Ant, but
19 minutes, I believe.
In Game 7?
In Game 7, I believe he played 19 minutes.
Yeah, and he wasn't even on, because he was on Ant for most of those minutes, but I think there were some of those minutes he overlapped with KCP, that KCP was still on him. But which I just disagree with on a philosophical level, because that entire series and this whole season long in the regular season, KCP on Anthony Edwards is like a complete. I've never seen. Maybe it's this exactly that. It's like what Rudy Gobert is. So Rudy Gobert is like a great defensive player, right? But on Jokic, it's like there's nothing he can do. I would say that is like the exact same thing with KCP to Ant Edwards. He just can't guard Anthony Edwards. Like Christian Brown actually can kind of. Any time in this series that Ant looked like he was just uncomfortable.
Looked like an actual human.
Was when Christian Brown was contesting his jump shots, and it's like he actually could cover that, and like make his shot uncomfortable, make him feel him a little bit. KCP was just kind of like, I'll stick with you. But ultimately, you're going to get to your spot and basically shoot like a practice shot, like I'm not even here, essentially.
That is the thing that does really confuse me, why like you didn't see that worked in Game 3 and didn't continue it.
Because Malone likes to stick with his guys is the main thing, but I like that. KOC had a great point on the mismatch, bringing up like the this whole season and postseason, the starters on the Nuggets against the Timberwolves are like a terrible net rating. Even though this was the best net rating starting five in the NBA this season, was Murray, Jokic, KCP, MPJ, and Aaron Gordon. By the numbers, that was the most dominant starting five in the NBA. But against the Wolves, they were like on average like a -16.
Oof.
Which is insanely bad.
Yeah.
And that checks out when you think about, this is the team that is literally built to give the Nuggets problems. Maybe you do need to change up the way your team operates. Yeah.
Because they don't have they're not ready for the Jayhawk legend, Christian Brown.
Yeah.
They're not built for it.
Mm-hmm.
They're built for, I'm actually mad I don't know this.
KCP's college?
Yeah.
That's why he's buddies with Ant.
They both went to Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I'm mad at myself for that, actually.
Yeah, that's why they're tight. But
that's disappointing, and I'm disappointed in myself, but yeah.
Yeah, Bulldogs. But I think they're both from Atlanta also. I think KCP's from Atlanta, I want to say. But yeah, anyways, to put a bow on like the how will Jokic's Game 5 be remembered, which we haven't really been talking about. But I just feel like if we would have won the series, that becomes like that becomes like the first thing people note in his career accolades if he doesn't have a better game, which I feel like definitely is possible. Could have another one as good, if not better. That's the thing about how I feel like when you said like why I disagree with he got into a bag we didn't know he had, is because like I definitely knew that a game like that was within Jokic's capabilities, and I feel like it's definitely in the cards that he could have an even better one.
Yeah, so it's like I was trying to think of like when I saw this prompt on our notes, like what's like a game that like you don't see it. So Charles Barkley had 42 points in the 1993 finals.
Finals, yeah, that's what I was guessing.
But nobody remembers that one. Everybody remembers Michael Jordan having 55 in Game 4.
Was that the same game?
No, different games.
Different games. But I mean, I would say a lot of at least like Barkley defenders, obviously.
But I'm just saying, like in the realm of the world,
yeah,
like
Charles Barkley's known much more for being a goofy guy on television than having one of the best games in finals history.
Yeah, I went down a rabbit hole and like was like crying at my desk at work because like it's been kind of like officially not official, but like officially like it's over inside the NBA is not going to be exactly what it has been type of thing. But like just some of the clips and you like forget about them.
Yeah.
There's just so many of them. Like you like the San Antonio women's got big old women from Charles Barkley, but then like he said they eat churros and then he like takes both his fists and is air feeding himself churros and then Shaq makes him keep doing it. It's no.
I don't know if I've even seen that clip, to be honest. I've seen a lot of the San Antonio stuff.
It's very suggestive. It's like, oh, he's got these 2 churros, and the San Antonio women are eating the churros, and
gotcha.
It's just,
yeah, that is sad, and I have to take a deep dive.
I hope it's not true, but it's just sad.
Seems like it will be with all the TV deal stuff, yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, though, Jokic, I think, is still gonna probably end up like top 10 player of all time range. But like this, to me, honestly, is kind of the breaking point of like, if the Nuggets repeat here, which is what I really was hoping for the Nuggets to win a second championship in a row. Like, I was really excited for like, what if, obviously this is wishful thinking, but what if this, like the 2020s is like what the 90s were for the Bulls, but for the Nuggets in the 2020s. And I was like, that'd be so wild. And so
to be the wet blanket, I don't think that the NBA has too many good teams.
Yeah, that's a very fair counter.
Because I don't think that we'll have. I think that until like there's an expansion and like the talent gets spread to a point where you see like, oh, they've just got too many good pieces.
They'll never do to the extent that they did in the 90s, throughout the 90s, adding that many teams in such a short amount of time.
No, it'll be really slow, but my point is like we won't see another team do what the Bulls did, and it won't have anything to do with not having another Michael Jordan. And it'll be more to do with the throne didn't change seats very often, and the people competing for the throne didn't change seats. It's not like one team constantly was beating down the same teams. It was Jordan beat the Pistons, and then he held back the same type of teams on the West, and it just was the same exact cast going at it again and again and again. What we saw with the Warriors and the Cavs, it was that same type of thing. I don't think we'll have another 5-year stretch like that. It'll be. I mean, our last ditch efforts at it might be like Jokic and the Nuggets
versus the Celtics,
and this like, and just because of how like the contracts on those teams are. There's like a longevity of like the Celtics cores together for 4 more years, I think, assuming Jason Tatum comes back for every penny that they can legally give him. The Celtics cores together for another like 4 years, with the only thing changing being Al Horford retiring type of thing. And then the Nuggets have a lot of the same things where they can bring everybody back for like fiscally they can make bringing people back work. So
for at least for a little while. Yeah, I'm not sure how much longer, but
next year it'll be harder for the Nuggets because things can change in the East, but outside of a superstar going to a Knicks, going to a Magic, going to a Sixers, not really, but going to one of those like Paul George with Sixers type of move, like those are the only moves that I think like shake up the East so hard that you like. Are the Celtics not the favorite anymore?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It has to be like that type of a giant move where a max contract guy goes from somewhere in the West to the East to like KD to the Knicks is like one that you see people theory crafting all the time. I think that could like swap things up on who's favored, but I would be shocked if it's not the Celtics preseason favorites in the East for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, especially if everybody stays healthy and together. Yeah. Drew Holiday is probably the next guy because you guys are going to have to extend him. Oh, you already got it?
We already did.
And I believe so. That's a big, I'm guessing that's pretty big, right?
And he didn't take it. 4-year, 135.
Yeah.
And which is not, he's older. It's a fair deal, I think.
Really?
Like, it's not like you're overpaying him.
At the end of that contract, how do you think that's going to look? What, he'll be 36, 37? Maybe older? right?
I'd pay Al $35 million a year. With how the cap expands?
So he'll be making 35 at that age?
I believe so. Let me double check. I will look at the
Spot track.
spot track. I typed in stat track and I knew it wasn't right.
Yeah, but I guess what my point kind of was that Jokic was like, this was like kind of the teetering point. Maybe it's not, but I was kind of viewing this as like the teetering point of like, if the Nuggets break through and win back-to-back here, then we're talking about Jokic as like, maybe he ends up in the stratosphere of LeBron and Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? Maybe he's on that trajectory. This trajectory, though, so now that we've lost, it's like that
Kobe, Hakeem.
Kobe or Tim Duncan was the one I was thinking of mainly.
Oh, yeah.
Like Tim Duncan is still definitely within grasp, that range of player. Because, you know, the Spurs never won back-to-back. A lot of people consider the Spurs a dynasty. And they never went back-to-back. So they ended up with 5 championships. So that's obviously something that would be hard to do. It's wishful thinking, obviously, to say the Nuggets win 5 championships in this, just after with all the stuff we went through about how hard it is to win a championship now. Winning 5 would be definitely a glorious outcome. But I'd say at the very least, now that he's already got a ring, like he's cemented himself at least in the Dirk range. You know, Jokic, he's basically barred the door at like, he's around the Dirk level, which you can't really sneeze at.
No, I'm not. He will never be less than a top 25 guy.
It'd be hard to, at least, unless he completely...
You'd have to go way into the future where there's been another 100 years of good NBA basketball to maybe bump you, but he's at that level.
I wasn't even thinking about it that way, but I just mean like if he kind of fell off a little bit and, you know, after this and had...
At the minimum, he's a 3-time MVP. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, so I guess looking at one of my other points that I wanted to touch on, unless did you have that information yet? The Drew Holiday?
I do, yes.
Yeah, what was that number?
$30 million next year. Or that's this year. 24. No, $30 million next year. 32 in 25. It like grows. And it's 37.2 in the last year. And it is a player option.
And he will be how old?
He will be 37.
37.
So it's not great.
Yeah, for a guard like that. But
it's also the other thing that I don't know is like they don't have like cap estimations of like how much of the cap it will be type of thing.
So at that point, 37 could be more like 24 now, you know, something like that.
Like in terms of how much money it yeah. Kristaps is through 25, 26 season. Peyton Pritchard, I did not realize he signed for that much for that long. He's definitely going to have to get paid, or he'll probably just stop playing. That's wild. Peyton Pritchard is through the 27-28 season, only making $8.3 million.
On average across those seasons?
That's the last year. Across the seasons, it's like... I don't know.
Wow, when did that
how
get
Brad
signed?
did that.
That's kind of wild.
Off-season, when he wanted to be traded, I think.
Wow, because he had to? Is that why? Is this the year? He probably could have waited till next year to sign the extension, right?
Yeah, because he definitely should have.
Yeah. Because he's worth a lot more now, I would say.
Than $6 million a year? 6 to 7. Probably an average of $7 million a year, for sure. I would say that Peyton Pritchard's worth that.
Yeah, I would say
4% of your cap.
On the open market, he could get at least like 12 to 15, I would think.
Yeah. Derek White will be the big one. You'll have to figure out.
But I guess...
Jason Tatum obviously is guaranteed his bag. But.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, yeah. Not going to get a penny less of the Supermax.
No, TD Garden will be on fire if he does not receive the Supermax.
Yeah.
Unless he does a crazy Tom Brady level thing.
For the city, yeah.
And doesn't take a Supermax.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum, avid listener, take the Supermax. Don't do it for Boston. Just take the Supermax. Thank you. Don't let Jalen make more than you. You're both equally important, but you deserve every penny he does at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Bare minimum. Anyway, we don't need to keep going down that rabbit hole. I apologize.
That's all right. MPJ is the next guy I wanted to talk about for this Nuggets corner just because he was just a complete yin-yang, like, you know, two sides of the spectrum. Jekyll and Hyde. I think that's what that means. That allegory or whatever. I think I just used another wrong word, allegory. I don't think that's what that means, is it? It doesn't matter. So. But it's, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say.
It is an allegory. Shout out.
Okay. All right.
A story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, a moral or political one, typically.
Oh, okay. So kind of, I guess.
No, yeah. I mean, it's a story that is a moral, it's a story that gives a moral thing, which is, it's the same person, but they're different. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So just two polar opposites. Like in the Lakers series, he was the second best player on the team. In the Wolves series, he like shouldn't have been on the floor for a lot of it, honestly, because he could not make anything. The only impact he was making was like he was a decently sized body on the defensive end, and he was getting some rebounds. And that was about it. It's pretty ugly to watch, honestly. And that's, even though I love Mike, this is honestly, from all the talks I've heard from a lot of Nuggets fans, like he's definitely the main name that gets brought up as like a trade candidate in this offseason.
Which we talked about it, like I think it wasn't this offseason, but it was like trade high type of mentality. Or maybe that wasn't with you. I've talked about this about.
Oh, that, maybe
like,
not.
Like coming off the high of last year's playoffs to trade him off type of thing.
Well, that wouldn't have been really that high of a high because he's had two terrible playoff series. Two absolutely just not even a factor playoff series. And that was this one that just happened. And it was the one we won the championship in, which was the Heat series, where he might as well have not even been there. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
But he had a better series that one, though, because there were at least like in game 5, he made a pretty big impact in terms of his rebounding and making hustle plays. Defense and things like that. But overall, though, still, he could not hit the broadside of a barn in that series, which is just wild when you are considered by yourself and many other people as like in the discussion
an assassin scorer.
Yeah, or like at least in the discussion for like the best or one of the best spot up 3-point shooters in the NBA. That's like in the class that he's discussed in. And him just completely falling off a cliff in a couple playoff series it's been rough. So we need somebody more reliable, you could argue. Although I'm not even advocating for that. I kind of do prefer more the just run it back, to be honest. The only change I could see maybe is like fully leaning into the Christian Brown, taking over the KCP spot in the starting lineup era and moving KCP for another ball handler, like a better option for the Reggie Jackson spot, something like that.
That's kind of a segue into the...
It is. Like to the last point that I want to talk about, which is Calvin Booth, the GM of the Nuggets, his vision.
Yeah, because like it's like a thing that is just a problem when your team is good. The run it back, there's like two camps that fans are always in. It's the run it back or like we need to like we can't run it back again. And that's where the Celtics were at going into this year is we can't run it back with the Jays and Marcus Smart, Al, that core. We need to swap something up. Because it's been a 3 or 4 year thing.
And you just made it less far than you had did the previous year, right? Was a big part of it.
Yeah, like in Eastern Conference Finals are nothing to scoff at, but it's nice. I mean, getting 6 runs at the Eastern Conference Finals and then only making the finals once is not great. But the Nuggets are in like a weird thing because they've gotten to the top and there's only been 1 year in between. So the weird, like, what does Booth want to do with it is kind of it's a weird spot to be at.
Yeah, and this also is like after we, obviously lost last night and things started to soak in. A quote from very early in the season, right before the season started, or maybe it was just early on in the year, either one. But back when KOC interviewed Calvin Booth, a quote from that interview was something that kind of came ringing back to me. And I also heard around some discussion with other Nuggets fans of how Calvin Booth said that in his vision, it's more of a long-term thing, and he's actually willing to prioritize that vision, even if it costs them winning back-to-back this season. Which, you could make an argument against that, like, is that the best decision when you have your window right now? Should you be playing around with trying to,
make it your own?
Yeah, make it like a window that could possibly be open later. Longer, maybe, but like when you it's to me, it's like you have your window right now. Why waste?
You have the prime of the best player on the planet. Why would you mess around with it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. With trying to do the 2 timelines thing, which is what we had an episode about criticizing the Warriors for. But I don't know. I don't have the worst, feelings about Calvin Booth's vision for the team, just because I do really like at least stylistically and tactically, the roster building ins and outs, like of what he likes and what he chooses. Like I'm definitely on board with those things, like how he views talent and puzzle pieces fitting together, what can complement Jokic, what can complement this team. I do think he has a really good eye for that, and he's really good at just drafting guys late in the draft that can really come in and serve a purpose on the team. But at the same time, it was like those guys weren't quite ready enough to be the contributors we needed them to be. And then so the guys that you didn't really prioritize getting, which was like the Reggie Jackson and the Justin Holiday, were just kind of like, oh, we'll throw them on this roster also. Those were the guys that Malone was riding down the stretch of the season, down, all the way to elimination. And if more priority was put on those roster spots, getting, veterans in those spots, maybe we're not home now. Maybe we are in the Western Conference Finals. So
sorry. I got a text from Cass, and I responded, "Yes, ma'am," but it autocorrected to "mama," and it felt wrong. So I had to immediately correct it, and I was laughing because of just how uncomfortable I made myself by the autocorrect of "yes, ma'am" being changed to "mama." It just is like a weird thing.
No, yeah, understandable. But yeah, so I guess that's just something that I wanted to put my 2 cents in on, which I guess I really haven't. I've just kind of explained why, or the different viewpoints or the different sides of that coin with Calvin Booth. But I don't know. I do like the vision of the young guys, but at the same time, I do kind of wish that he prioritized those, like the Justin Holiday spot or the Reggie Jackson spot, a little bit more, or the DeAndre Jordan spot for that matter. Like if those were just scaled up a little bit, I think that would have gone a long way,
I think that in my brain, like the only reason or time to really truly do the full on like 2 windows thing is like if you have I'm trying to think of a team that even has it, where you have a guy that's like old Clippers, rewind before they got rid of SGA. You have like a Kawhi window, and then you would have had your SGA window. You need to have like 2 guys like that.
They weren't on the same team. This is a hypothetical.
They weren't on the same team at the same time?
The reason why SGA is not a Clipper is because of Kawhi.
I thought it was the Paul George trade.
Yeah. The only reason Kawhi went to the Clippers was because
okay, never mind.
They traded everything to get Paul George.
Okay, then that example. But like my thing is where you have like someone that has that like potential and then someone that's doing it now. Yeah. Instead of like trying to have like 2 windows.
Maxey and Embiid. Like we've talked about.
Yes, kinda. Duh. I'm so dumb. Maxey, that's a perfect example of like, and even then I don't think you do it. You just like lean into one of them and pivot when that window kind of closes. Instead of trying to do because the only way that I see the Nuggets being able to do the 2 windows thing is you have Jokic, prime Jokic, and then like old man Jokic. Like those are the only 2 windows I feel like you could build around.
Yeah, and also I think that it's good that Calvin Booth, the way he's doing it, isn't quite like the Warriors, where it was like the current core with the Warriors were like at their very tail end, in their 30s.
They're doing it earlier.
Yeah, and so he's doing it earlier, but also he's drafting a lot older. Like last year in the draft, the 3 guys we took, the youngest one was a junior who had just finished his junior year of college. And the other 2 were super seniors.
Yeah, drafting guys that are like NBA ready type. Because that's what more years usually leads to is you don't have the same length and they might not end up being as good, but plug them in, they're just better and ready to go now. Type of thought.
And like probably a lot cheaper to retain.
Yes. Because they'd rather have yes, that's Yeah, that's a very good point also. I didn't even really think of that part.
Yeah, so it's just I could see for sure like Jokic, because by the time like Christian Brown is basically already ready, but like Christian Brown's best season is probably going to be in 2-3 years, something like that. And by that point, Jokic is still going to be at his peak, absolute peak, bro. Maybe he's better at age 31 or 32, you know?
Maybe, but like that might be his peak.
Yeah.
Like, and where the down will start there's freaks that it doesn't happen to, but like that it might start to go down is after that point.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
I would doubt that by 31 or 32, we would start seeing Jokic decline. I would feel that would be very surprised about that. Yeah, it'd definitely be after. I would see because I mean, Jokic is a guy that I'm very interested in seeing how he ages, because in my mind, I'm like, what gets worse with age with him?
No, out of how he plays. And the thing that I also think is like, not going into the retirement thing, Jokic has told us when he's going to retire. I just have had to talk to people about this recently. Jokic will retire when he cannot play as good as he wants to. He said that multiple times. He's not going to go out on the tippy top unless he's like, just if he feels like he can't do what he wants to do anymore physically and can't be the type of player he wants to be, that's when he'll stop. So the whole people like, is he just going to be so fed up after this year he's gone? No, you're dumb. Take your thumbs away and stop typing on the internet.
I literally haven't even heard that take, and I'm glad I haven't.
Yeah, he will leave when he's good and ready, and I think good and ready is when he's like 36 or 7. It will not be early. It might not be like a GOAT where they go into their almost 40s type of thing, but it will be a like, he'll go out when he goes out and it doesn't matter. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. We got a lot of years left with him, and then Aaron Gordon's like the same exact age. Jamal Murray's a year younger. KCP is really the only guy that's like over 30 right now. That's like a part of like, you know, the main rotation. And I guess Reggie Jackson, but again, not like a core piece for the long run. Although I do like the story with, you know, Reggie Jackson being a hometown or a home state, you know, kid from Colorado Springs, being able to play.
If you touch Derek White, I will literally never talk to you. I'm not joking. That's real life. The podcast is over if the Nuggets sign Derek White.
I mean, that wouldn't be my fault.
No, we already know that Michael Malone's an avid listener of the pod.
Yeah.
So he will send it up the flagpole.
So why are you feeding him the idea?
No. He knows that this will be gone, and he enjoys it too much. So I needed to get it out there.
I got you. He enjoys that more than he would enjoy having Derek White on his team?
Yeah. He enjoys this what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this has been a really rambling one because I keep cutting you off. I even told you that I'm going to listen exclusively for Nuggets Corner. And I've done a pretty good job, but I have talked a little bit too much, so I'll stop.
That's all right. But I think we're honestly kind of done with Nuggets Corner, to be honest. So that can be it for that. What are we at? Yeah, we need to start wrapping this baby up.
Do we want to kill it? Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I would agree.
Put a gun in its mouth.
Wow.
Pull the trigger!
Yeah, so I think that'll be it for this episode. I don't think we'll get into the awards like we thought we might, but we'll just save that for next episode. And then also, just to touch on it again, I know we touched on it at the beginning, but mailbag, do that. We want to get like a good pile of them so we can, you know, just do a whole episode on it. I think that would be the best way to do it.
We've got an amount that we could do like a pretty strong segment, but we would like to just do like a big old full-on ep of it. So if you have anything, just throw it in to the email, and that is hooptheory.mailbag@gmail.com. Again, Hoop Theory with 2 O's. Actually, that's going to be very confusing.
Yeah, because the only way to spell hoop.
Anyway, hooptheory.com. No, hooptheory.mailbag@gmail.com is the email to send your mailbag questions to. Basketball related, not basketball related, not even sports adjacent. It can be literally anything.
Nature. It could be about, you know,
I'll
animals.
Air my measurements, everything. Height, weight, shoes, inseam, waist, shoulders, pecs, belly. I'll lay it all out there so you can get a body pillow of me made if you want. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
So that is something you could email in about for the show. But other than that, check out the Patreon, buy me a coffee. The link's in description everywhere you're listening. Rate the show, subscribe, do all that stuff. Stay happy, stay healthy. We will talk to you guys next episode.
Peace!